Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start the meeting this afternoon, in remembrance of a past district governor, Carolyn Houston, who passed away just this past week. Carolyn was a good friend of mine. She was a member of the Lorraine Club, and she was a big supporter of me as chair of MESA for several years. She was out a week ago Saturday celebrating her 50th wedding anniversary. And on her way home from Little Italy to Lorraine, she got in a car accident. And there were 3 in the car. Her daughter was driving and her husband. And it was some sort of a drag racing incident on 475, I believe. She was only 68, and I traveled with her several times, 3 times to Central America as part of Uniendo, and I would just like to remember her and take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Welcome to our Monday meeting. Guests and our speaker, Jason Kucsma. I would like to invite Doug Heilman to please come to the podium and offer a reflection, followed by Shonda Gore leading the pledge. Thanks, Doug.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibility. And thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. We say a brief prayer today for the family and soul of Colin Powell, who passed away this morning from complications of COVID, as well as Carolyn. We pray for all our leaders that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. Amen.
I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Doug. I'd also like to thank Kevin Mullen, who is our meeting sponsor, KPM Consulting, and he is our sponsor this entire month. Does anybody have any guests that you've got with them today? Please come to the podium, or not to the podium, to the floor mic, and introduce them.
I'd like to introduce my guest, Richard Jacomot. He's from Cleveland. I just came into town. He was formerly, years ago, spent time with Ohio Citizens. He was in their personnel department, also head of all their building maintenance and all that, got relocated to Cleveland. Dick, if you could stand.
Good morning. I brought my friend, Pastor Rick Morris, who has been helping with the Peace Committee within our Toledo Rotary, helping us navigate the urban community. He happens to run an organization called Repurposed Living, which helps 17 to 25-year-olds find a better path in life. Thanks for being here, Rick.
Everybody, Kathy Selke and I brought Mike Graybeal here with us. He's a member of the executive leadership team at the library, Director of Operations.
Thank you and welcome, Richard, Pastor Rick, and Mike. I want to remind everybody that this Thursday is X Out Polio Day. It's over in Rossford, I believe. We've got probably maybe 20-some people registered. My wife and I are going, so look out. I've never thrown an axe before. Cost is $50. Most of that goes to polio. You can see I've got my polio pin on today. I'm sure probably Tim Ryan does too. World Polio Day is the 24th, so this is one of the big fundraisers for that. You can look at the spoke and you can register. There's a click on, it's real easy. So hopefully you can come. Starts at 5 o'clock, goes till 7:30. We do have some plans in the making for a holiday party on December 10th. They're tentative plans right now. We're looking at Toledo Country Club. Should know a little bit more next meeting. And is Maria White here? There she is, hiding in the corner. Come on up here.
Boo! I scared you. Good. I'm making an announcement about our first annual Halloween party on October the 30th, which is a Saturday evening, starting at 6 o'clock, and technically ends at 8 o'clock, but actually that's just when the next party begins. So if you'd like to come at 6 o'clock, it's $20 per person. Costumes are encouraged, but I won't be wearing one, so don't feel like you have to. In fact, I have a little button that says, "This is my Halloween costume," and that's what I'm wearing. So please come and register, if you will, RSVP through the spoke or your announcement about this meeting today. And there'll be appetizers and a cash bar, and it's just $20 a person. There will also be a DJ and possibly someone taking pictures. So please think about coming and bring a friend. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. And the Toledo Club tells us that they are the best decorated venue for Halloween in the world. So we'll see. Maybe not in the world. Next, Suzanne Rorick, would you please come up and introduce Jason Kucsma, our speaker? Thanks.
Wow, thank you. Boy, things have changed since I've been here, so it's so good to have lunch with all of you again. I mean it feels like Rotary when I look around, so thank you very much. I've been given the privilege of introducing our speaker for today, the Executive Director of the Toledo Lucas County Public Library, Jason Kucsma. Jason is a born and raised Ohioan who earned both his bachelor's degree in communications and his master's degree in American Cultural Studies at Bowling Green State University. He earned a second master's degree in library and information science at the University of Arizona before moving to New York City to work with public academic school and special libraries as executive director of the Metropolitan New York Library Council. Yeah, that's impressive. Jason returned to Ohio in 2015 to assume the role of Deputy Director at Toledo Lucas County Public Library under Clyde Scholes. That's still on his name tag, by the way. He's the Deputy Director. As many of you know, Clyde was a downtown Rotarian, and he addressed this body several times that I recall. But Jason was appointed Executive Director in August of 2019, where he now leads a staff and executive team of nearly 400 employees providing world-class library services to the diverse communities of Lucas County. His work in libraries is informed and driven by his dedication to the role public libraries play in building strong communities through equitable access to information and technology. And under his leadership, Toledo's libraries are open and welcoming to everyone, a model that we all must follow in today's not-profit sector work. I certainly try to at the Opera. He's a great example of that. He's been a good guidance for me, but he also leads as co-president of TACKLE, the Toledo Area Cultural Leaders, which is where I work with him most closely and have witnessed his skilled management style. He and his wife live in Sylvania and are busy parents raising children, twins, who are 7. So you all know what that means. Please welcome my friend and colleague, the soft-spoken, thoughtful, and brilliant Jason Kucsma.
Hi there, everybody. I don't know how to advance the slides, so I imagine that will be taken care of somehow, unless I get a clicker. While we're doing that, this is the first time I've stood in front of a group of people in over 2 years, so see how this goes, right? Thank you. And as Suzanne was mentioning too, it's been a while since I've been here at Rotary in person, so much so that my name tag still does say Deputy Director on it, so we got to get that. We'll get that straightened away here shortly. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you again, Suzanne. It's really a pleasure for us at the library to be able to host and work with community partners like the Opera and other arts and culture organizations to provide those experiences for people throughout the county. So really appreciate that thoughtful introduction. I am, in fact, soft-spoken, so I apologize in advance. But as Suzanne was mentioning, I did come here in 2015 and took the role of Deputy Director under Clyde Scholes. And I know there are not many of you don't know this in this room, but he died suddenly in February 2019. Just 7 months later, I ended up taking the role of the director. In many ways, we have been operating our library system in crisis mode now for almost 3 years, which is just really, really remarkable. I'd say that the public library has still thrived during this entire period, and leaving me to wonder, if we can do this in crisis mode, I can only imagine what's possible for us in normal times. And if our leadership team has anything to say about it, we're going to do some pretty incredible things. That is why we stand behind a bold new vision for the library, to be the first place that people turn to in our community when they want to broaden their horizons or to connect with one another. The journey may not end at the library, but if it starts there, we'll set you on the right path. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let me back up and tell you a little bit about your Toledo-Lucas County Public Library. Some of this might be familiar to you, but when I've shared this info in other venues, even dyed-in-the-wool library advocates have learned a little something new about their library system. We are an urban-suburban library system, obviously here in Lucas County, serving about 450,000 residents. We have 400 employees at the library and 2 unions. So we've got CWA 4319 and the Association of Public Library Employees. It's an affiliate of UAW. We have our main library that spans 2 city blocks just around the corner from us here. 300,000 square feet of space in that library for the public to use. Plus we have 19 branches and our mobile services. The library is an independent political subdivision. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you, but it means we're not local government, we're not a school district, we're not a nonprofit organization. We are a little bit of everything and none of the above. The library's 2 main sources of revenue are local property taxes, which would be familiar to you all, but also the Public Library Fund, which is a unique mechanism here in Ohio that supports public libraries through a percentage of the general revenue fund. So all those receipts that go into Columbus, 1.7% of those receipts are sent out to 251 public library systems throughout the state. So that's a little bit about what we are. Let me talk a little bit about what we do. We have more than 3 million physical items, including books, magazines, newspapers, audiobooks, CDs, and DVDs, plus more than 1 million downloadable and streaming titles. We provide instant library card registration to anybody. You can sign up for the card on our website and have it within minutes to access any of these resources that you want from the library. The library connects people to resources that fuel positive momentum for individuals in our community. We have a dedicated grants and business support team that works one-to-one with nonprofit organizations and entrepreneurs to provide, give them the leg up that they need. We have academic quality databases, journal articles, video classes, and certificates ranging from graphic design to HTML to project management. And of course, all of that is free with the library card. We make sure that all of those resources are available to anyone in the community, and they can access them across 20 locations across the county. We provide more than 1,000 hours of service per week, and I can give you a little inside scoop here that we will be presenting a proposal to the Board of Trustees this month to expand library hours even further in January 2022 as we're staffing back up post-pandemic. Our mobile services team visits senior residential centers, some of our under-resourced neighborhoods, and they provide home delivery and child care centric kit deliveries. Essentially, the mobile services help us fill those gaps where we don't have those physical locations. We also have computers and Wi-Fi access at every one of our locations, and that was never more evident during the pandemic as we saw people hanging out outside of our buildings during the brief period that we were closed to the public using Wi-Fi, accessing the internet. But our laser-like focus on supporting our community's needs has really resulted in some outputs that I'm really proud to share with you today. We have 300,000 active cardholders. And we see about 3 million customers per year pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, we hosted 50 walk-up vaccine clinics and provided more than, it says 30,000 at-home COVID test kits, but it's actually closer to 50,000 today. And we've supported parents, caregivers, teachers, and students with 4,000 education bags, 2,600 reading toolkits, and 500,000 activities to go pages that we distributed to youth and adults as part of our grab-and-go services during the pandemic. Pandemic. I don't want to talk about it, but I think it's probably useful to share a little bit of context around this. After I was appointed in 2019, obviously I reorganized our leadership team, and we had finalized a number of moves that were necessary to create the executive leadership team. We completed that work in February of 2022. I think we probably had time for one group retreat before the World Health Organization declared COVID a global pandemic and everything began to shut down. It's a weird thing, footnote here, but the Toledo Lucas County Public Library was one of the first public library systems in the country to close in an effort to help our community sort of mitigate some of those risks in the early days of the pandemic. But I'm incredibly proud of our leadership team and the way that they came together and stepped into action to help us manage and mitigate during this pandemic. Our locations were really only closed for about 45 calendar days while staff were at home working remotely to ramp up virtual services and to prepare for providing library services during the pandemic. Through all of my communication with my leadership team and with our staff, we really focused on how can we be helpful in the ways that our community needs our help, as opposed to us trying to say what we thought the community needed. So to do that, we listened. County and city emergency operations centers needed vehicles to distribute resources and supplies, so we loaned about a handful of our vehicles from our fleets to that work. Hundreds of people were making masks during COVID in early days, but they had no place to take them, so we turned our book drops into mask drops where they could be collected. Healthcare providers were having a difficult time with finding PPE, so we worked with the Dana Corporation to put our 3D printers to use building components for face shields. More recently, the health department identified a need, the health department identified zip codes where vaccinations were low, and that's where we hosted those 50 walk-up shot clinics at those branches in those zip codes. And more recently, the Ohio Department of Health was looking for an effective way to distribute rapid testing kits. So nearly 2/3 of Ohio library systems stepped up and began distributing those at-home COVID tests. And again, I mentioned we're close to 50,000 of them at this point in time. And we also listened to our staff during this period. They really wanted to know how the library was going to, how library services were going to look, and how they would do their work during the pandemic. They also wanted guidance on how we were going to keep them and the community safe during the pandemic. So we created a number of work groups from people from all corners of the library and tasked them with working on things like staffing, logistics, programming, PPE, and we rolled those recommendations from the work groups and best practices from corporations, guidance from the CDC and other authoritative sources into what you see here as the Safe Work Playbook. And it became just that. The playbook was it guided us through that pandemic. During every scenario, we cracked that open and helped us make decisions throughout the entire time. And it became a model nationwide for other public libraries to use as well. And I know that we shared it locally, and I hope maybe some people in this room were able to use this model as well. So let's jump back in that time machine again a little bit and go to about this time last year. So at that point, we had been safely providing library services for about 4 months in person. Our leadership team, we had our feet under us. We were effectively and efficiently managing the library system in the middle of a pandemic. Who knew? But something was missing. And we had been innovating, rethinking, retooling services, adjusting protocol on the fly to match ever-changing guidance from local, state, and federal healthcare professionals. But we had no vision. We had no plan. Here we were, a leadership team of about seven skilled leaders who hadn't had the opportunity or space to think about how the library emerges from the pandemic. So in November, we embarked on a process, a 3-month process with Root, as many groups, or many have done in our community, to really strengthen the relationships between our leadership team. We hadn't had a lot of time to get to know each other, to trust each other, to build up those relationships, and then also to articulate a vision for the future of the library. So if you can imagine several 4-hour interactive Zoom sessions, that is exactly as thrilling and mind-numbing as it sounds. But what came out of that work is, I think it's something really remarkable and well-timed. We emerged from that process in late January with a roadmap and a new vision for the library to be the first place that people go when they want to, when they want to broaden their horizons or connect with one another. I mentioned this as well-timed because we began socializing this with our staff this spring, a little bit earlier this year, at a time when vaccinations were ramping up, optimism was growing, and it felt really powerful for us to be able to work towards something that was not COVID mitigation. And feedback from our staff backed this up as well. So with this roadmap, we at the library are doubling down on what we do best and inviting our partners to use the public library as a platform for what they do best. What do we do best? Well, these 6 strategic priorities lay that out pretty clearly. First, we help children learn to read from birth to 3rd grade. We want to have a measurable impact on the individual lives of children birth through 3rd grade via library tutoring, reading, and teacher outreach programs in direct support of kindergarten readiness assessment and working towards that passing rate of the 3rd grade reading guarantee. We're here to help students succeed. From 3rd to 12th grade, we want to provide pathways for success in the individual lives of students and young adults through the participation, in library after-school programs, strategic partnerships, and mentorship opportunities. We want to help adults expand their horizons within our areas of expertise. Now, people use the library for a wide range of reasons, whether it's to see an author talk, check out the new bestseller, download titles, or apply for a job or apply for unemployment services, those sort of things. So how do we measure what it looks like to help adults expand their horizons? The first thing we're going to do is by 2026, we want to have 90% of Lucas County residents with a library card in their hand. We also provide technology access. We want to ensure that every person in Lucas County has access to a computer and the Wi-Fi that they need to use it. And we also provide technology skills development. We want to ensure that every customer community member can go to any library location at any time to meet or expand their technology skills. And finally, we want to serve as the go-to community connection and hub. This is really us making an attempt to reposition the library as that institution where community members turn to when they want to engage one another or connect with vital community resources. And this is a pretty expansive vision, to be sure, but I think we really think it's the library's responsibility and it's our honor to support people's potential from birth through school years and into their adulthood. So I'd like to take a minute here, a little bit of time, to talk about some of the recent work that shows our progress towards these priorities. So some of you may be familiar, and indeed many of you have probably financially supported or helped us start up the library's really strong early childhood literacy program called Ready to Read. Our librarians and reading specialists, they go out to places such as grocery stores, doctor waiting rooms, the zoo, TARDA, buses, and they talk to families about reading to their babies. The librarians provide a backpack of early literacy tools, including books, and they train families and childcare providers, really teaching them the importance of talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing with children with intentionality. Together, these activities we know are the building blocks that help a child build context and vocabulary so that they can become strong readers and future successful students. Our librarians also partnered with the eBide's NICU parent group to teach parents, the tiniest newborns, the importance of reading to their babies and providing them the tools they need, including free books and guidance, without asking them to leave the hospital. We're also developing a similar program with Mercy to be in their NICUs as well. This work is the restoration of a parenting act during a really challenging time, one that we think is constructive and strengthening for parents in our community simply through reading a story or singing a song. This is a phrase that has been almost intertwined with the coronavirus pandemic, the digital divide. So that pivot that we all made to virtual experiences, from telecommuting and online classrooms to social activities and applying for jobs, important services like unemployment benefits, it really further exposed the gaps in our community faces when it comes to digital skills, obtaining affordable computer hardware, and reliable internet access. This disparity has been really a central topic for decades now, and it's one that the library is really well positioned to help our community address as a place that is known for learning collaboration in our community. We have over 600 public computers that hosted more than 200,000 computer sessions last year, and we provided more than 1,000 hours of service, as I mentioned before, to help people do things like set up email, search, and apply for jobs, access rental assistance, apply for the emergency broadband benefit, and other assistance, or log into remote classes, homework assignments, or even job interviews. We also have a partnership with Ohio Means Jobs, where we brought them into the library, into Main Library, to bring their staff and help provide further connections for between people and available opportunities for them. Our library system was also working with a fairly new nonprofit called PCs for People, where they refurbish used technology and then resell it for pennies on the dollar, or they give it away to those who qualify financially. So essentially, people come to the library, they order a computer online, and then they come back to the library and pick it up when it's available. And lately, we've been convening a group of interested community leaders around the issue of digital equity under the name the Greater Toledo Digital Equity Coalition. And the conversations we've been having are really intended to help us position our community to better address the broadband gap in our own backyard, but also to be prepared for really unprecedented federal investment in broadband expansion that we expect to be coming down the pike in the next year or so. And all of this work is really in service to those two strategic priorities that provide technology access and also the skills that people need to use that technology. Some of you might have seen some of the news rolling out last week or even over the weekend, but the library is taking on administration of our county's Dolly Parton Imagination Library Initiative. So we know that building literacy skills and language skills are really essential for children to be kindergarten ready. Pardon me here. So they enter school with that love of reading and they're ready to learn. But for those who are not familiar, the Imagination Library is a monthly giving program that mails free, high-quality books to children from birth to age 5 at no cost to their family, no matter what their income level is. We make it easy for families to sign up for this program at the library, and of course, we also can share other wraparound services the library provides, like story times or countdown to kindergarten, reminding parents that there are no fines for any materials that are late to the library, and generally providing all of those services around literacy for children. This highly impactful literacy program was helmed by the Women's Initiative at the United Way of Greater Toledo. They started it in 2014, and in the first 7 years, they did a remarkable job working with partners to get 11,000 children signed up to the program. We know that there are 30,000 eligible kids for that, kids eligible for that program. So we're doubling down on our work here and expect, we're hoping to reach, to double that number up to 20,000, 22,000 kids in the first year that we're running this program. If you are interested in supporting that work, our Director of Development is here, Kathy Selking. She'd be glad to have a conversation with you. But this is really critical for our community, as only 1/3 of Lucas County children are considered ready for kindergarten, according to the Ohio Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. In summer of 2020, our community and essentially our country were really forced to reckon with decades of systemic racism and inequity. And as an institution that really takes pride in being welcoming to everyone, no matter what you have, where you come from, what color skin you have, or who you love, we have a vested interest in making sure that we know that we still have work, and we have a vested interest in making sure that we're walking that talk at the library. So in June of 2020, I issued a challenge to our coordinator of organizational learning at the time. I asked her, I said, to build a program for us that would be an internal program to build, improve, and grow in areas of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, hence the big idea. And so about this time last year, we rolled out phase 1, which focused on building a foundation of shared vocabulary and understanding and awareness, excuse me, and courageous conversations and self-assessment about how people understood equity to be playing out. And following on that, phase 2 is involved in improving that work through application at all corners of the work that we do at the library. And a final phase, which will be work that we'll do in perpetuity, is really a long-term execution and measurement and assessment of how we're progressing towards creating a more inclusive culture for our organization. This work has been so important to us, and it's been fairly invisible to the general public because the goal of it is really focusing on organizational culture within the library. The better we can treat each other, and the better we can create a welcoming space for our staff and in each other, the better we can do that for our community. And to a footnote to that, Erin Baker, who is the coordinator of organizational learning, we recently promoted her to be the library's first director of equity, diversity, and inclusion earlier this year. So all of this is just a snapshot of the work that we're doing at TLCPL. I didn't get a chance to mention that we're working with new relationships with new partners like Bitwise, right across the street here, being at the table for Connect Toledo's important downtown and neighborhood development work, partnering with the Ability Center on the DREAM initiative to ensure that our schools and libraries have representative books for people of all abilities, offering outdoor story walks at all of our locations in some metro parks so that children can enjoy a library experience safely during COVID, and even launching our upcoming library takeover, which will start next year. Every quarter, the library will be taken over by a community member to create memorable experiences in a new venue that they might not have experienced before. It's a really exciting time to be in Toledo and in this region. At the library, we really think that this emerging community investment, these development opportunities, and national recognition are really changing the trajectory of our region. With the library's incomparable staff and the resources we have, we think we can be positive fuel to that momentum. We are extremely proud to be part of this region of makers, doers, and dreamers, and it is fortunate for us to be in a community that so apparently understands that strong public libraries are necessary for strong neighborhoods, strong communities, and strong cities. So I thank you all for your time today, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Folks coming in to try to access funds that are available for those folks that are behind on their rent. I mean, their only access maybe to computers, sign up for that might be the library, and that there's apparently a lot of money there. The library might be the first place that they might go. Is that something?
Absolutely, absolutely. Pardon me. Yeah, that is one of the things that we focused on early on. We wanted to make sure that our staff had the resources and the skills they needed to help people apply for those benefits, whether it's rental assistant, or even the emergency broadband benefit, which we know now is, provides up to $50, I think, per person per month towards broadband or mobile devices. So absolutely. One of those things when we identify a need in the community, our team of our youth services coordinator, our adult services coordinator are pushing out information to our staff throughout the entire county, so they all are working from the same playbook to help.
I love the idea of the commitment of our libraries to promote reading from birth to, in preparation for kindergarten. What are the strategies the libraries utilize to get those people, largely in underserved neighborhoods, through the doors, into the library, into those programs? Thanks.
That's a really good question. It's a really good question, and I think one of the benefits is that in some neighborhoods, the public library is really the only game going on right now. And so we're really pushing to make sure that our children are coming to us after school. But honestly, the outreach of the Ready to Read program, that's a program that was launched here in 2000. I'm looking at Kathy right now. The Ready to Read program was launched in some time ago, 8 years ago. It could easily be scaled up much larger because really we find so much value in our staff going out and meeting people where they are. And so they're clever and creative in how they do that work. I've seen them set up in the toy section at Walmart, catching parents and teaching parents and child care providers how, the basics of early childhood literacy in where they are and out doing shopping and those sort of things. But certainly I think one of the things we're really excited about the Imagination Library Initiative because it really is a sort of, it's kind of a beacon that we can focus a lot of attention around and get people signed up for that. And then once we get them into that program, it gives us a whole set of other opportunities to engage people. Thanks, Mari.
Reyes Chaudhry. First of all, I think it's a beautiful lecture you've given us about the library. My question is very unusual, and I always wonder what is the answer to that. Is there any evidence that in the last 4 weeks of intrauterine life, if you read to the baby or talk to the baby, it shows any kind of improvement? I've done it myself and other people, my sons and other people I talk to, and it is a habit with people as a group. But is there any research done on it that the baby's reading power is greater later on in life?
That's a good question. It is an unusual question. I don't know that I have the answer for that, but I do know that our Ready to Read librarians meet new parents who honestly think, well, my child doesn't talk, so I shouldn't be talking to them right now. Or because the child can't speak, there's no reason for them to speak or read. And so we're really trying to give them, maybe it's not those last 4 weeks, but it's the first 4 weeks out of the womb that they're getting those lessons of how important it is to talk and sing and read and play with a child. So I have some homework to do, so thank you. Hey, John.
Good job, Jason. This is not a question. It's actually a shameless commercial announcement for the library, which you would probably be too proud to ever make. But last month, Kathy was kind enough to set up a group of the Toledo Club to visit the downtown library. And I just have to say that everything we've seen here has been excellent in terms of service providing. But to really appreciate how wonderful the library is, you have to see the building. And the downtown library, I think it's one of the real treasures of our local architecture, and it's been renovated in really innovative ways. And I'm sure, Kathy, you would be delighted to host anybody who would like to see it, and it is really worth an hour of your day to see what's going on there because it is marvelous.
Thank you, John. Thanks for that plug. Not a plant, but I appreciate that. And that's what we hope that the takeovers that Kathy is spearheading next year will bring people to Main Library who have never experienced it or haven't experienced it in a very long time. And it is a remarkable place to come to work every day, and we're starting to see those door counts pick back up again now that people are feeling more comfortable getting out and doing some things.
Really interested to know what, if anything, you're doing to help people learn how to navigate the internet and social media safely. It's a big challenge for today's society, it seems.
Absolutely. One of the things that we have a new adult services coordinator, and so we've done children's services very well for a very long time, but had not had an adult services coordinator in place. And She was our former manager at Mommy, Allison Fiskus. She's been in her role for less than a half a year, I want to say now. But she is tasked with doing exactly that kind of work, teaching our community members about privacy, how to be safe online, how do you honestly, Facebook is a place that no matter how safe you are on that, there are still all kinds of pitfalls you can step into. And so I think part of her work is programming things that we know our community adults need. So that's certainly on the horizon. Hey, Mark.
Of course, you know, tremendous job. I really appreciate all
Thank
the
you.
work you and your organization does to kind of help lead the community. You mentioned something that I wasn't aware of that I believe you said about a third, some Ohio study that only a third of our students are ready for kindergarten. How does that look compared to other areas of the state?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, so we'd have to look into that a little bit more. But certainly, I think Lucas County mirrors a lot of other statewide and national statistics, especially around even broadband access. We know about a third of our community is not connected here, and so I would imagine that we're pretty on par with other parts of the state. You know, we work really closely with other metro libraries around Ohio, so we meet every other week. The directors meet, and we're consistently talking about what each library system is working on. And honestly, it's been a happy byproduct of the pandemic, because the metro library directors of Ohio did not meet regularly, but we've been meeting now every other week and comparing notes and trying to understand how we can better serve our communities. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Jason. So two things. First, I just want to say thank you to the library. As a parent of young children, when the pandemic hit, having my kids yanked from school immediately was one thing. To have them yanked from their library would have been catastrophic. And I'm impressed with how quickly you guys kind of mobilized and were able to have books that we could go online and order books, or just request books by age group and pick up a bag and take them home for our kids. So first of all, thank you for that, because I know that was a Herculean effort. It's not every day that we get one of our anchor institutions to present to our club in our community. And I'm just curious, I'll ask the question so you don't have to throw it at us. If all of us were to leave the meeting today and do something that would benefit the library, that would ultimately benefit our community, what would that be?
Take your neighbor to the library, maybe. Take your neighbor to the library, talk to Kathy about supporting the Imagination Library Initiative. That's a program that I think really it does an incredible job of connecting kids to what we need them to connect to, those new books. We get newborns signed up. They get 60 books by the time they're 5 years old. But I think ultimately it's word of mouth and you know, taking your neighbors to the library, or planning events, planning meetings at the library. And thinking about the library as a place for you and your organizations to engage the community. It's, you know, the Aspen Institute years and years, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago, put out a study on public libraries and really focused on the library as people, place, and platform. So people being, you know, the people that use the library and our staff, place as in the location, but platform is this idea of an institution on which we can build stronger communities. And I really like that. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around a little bit, but encouraging you all to think about the library as a sort of blank slate or a platform to work on.
Let me reiterate once again, thank you, Jason, for being here and presenting about the library. Sort of a tough question. You've mentioned several times coming to the library. You've also mentioned the fact that there's 2/3 of the kids aren't ready for kindergarten. Is there any sort of strategic ideas relating to transportation, other than a mobile library, which can't be there daily or weekly? Any thoughts on how to get further into the neighborhoods so you can get to them as opposed to them coming to you?
Sure.
Other than the internet, which we also know it's also shortcomings in those urban areas.
Sure, yeah, and I think we're very fortunate in Lucas County right now that if you look across the country and the distance most people might have to travel to get to their local branch, it is far greater than we have here. We're very fortunate to have as many branches here that almost every neighborhood has a branch within a few miles. You know, our Metro Parks was that they wanted everybody to live within 5 miles of a Metro Park. I think we're well within that already at the library. And so between that, partnerships with TARDA in the summertime, kids can ride the bus for free to get to the library. other partnerships with the schools. We have a meeting later this week to talk to TPS to understand how we can better improve our relationship with them and getting those kids into the libraries. We know that there's plenty of ways we can engage people online, but we know that that's a sort of a poor substitute for the real in-person experience of coming to the library. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all again. Really appreciate the opportunity. So,
All right, don't go away, Jason. We have a gift. Thank you so much. Great presentation and a great library.
Thank you.
One question, I know you network with other libraries around the state. Can you kind of address that a little bit? I know my wife gets books from all over the place.
Oh, I would be glad. I would give you all the insider tip. Because of the magic of the Public Library Fund, with a portion of those general receipts going into all public libraries, anybody can get a library card anywhere in Ohio. So if you want to get a library card at the Cleveland, I hope you all have one for Toledo, first of all. Get your Toledo Lucas County Public Library. But if you also want to use the Libby app to get audiobooks and those sort of things, all Ohioans can use any library in Ohio. So, and one of the things, I'm glad you asked that about networking. And one of my goals when I came here was really to shine a spotlight nationally on this public library system. I knew coming here, I lived in Toledo, I left, I knew coming back here that this is an incredible library system, world class, and humbly, I think, represented by my predecessor, Clyde Scholes. And so it's my goal to be a little bit more brash and singing the praises of the system and the staff out into nationwide. And I think we're getting some attention as well. So thanks.
Thanks again. Also, we'd like to give you this book called Historical Tales of Toledo. It's by past President Clint Mock from Toledo Rotary. And I don't know if you've got it. You probably got it about 10 copies in your library already.
Not my office.
But you can keep that one.
Thank you.
So thanks again. Appreciate it. Also, Jason, we're going to make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund in your name. So that's perfect timing since it's World Polio Day this week. And everybody, don't forget that we have the axe throwing on Thursday. Get into the spoke, register. It should be fun. Good networking opportunity. And they tell me it's not dangerous. But they haven't seen me yet. I would like to have Chuck Mann come up, please, and give us a little laugh. No respect.
No respect. Famous last words. Half a dozen famous last words. John Sedgwick was an American general and was killed in 1864 at the Civil War Battle of Spotsylvania. His last words were, "Why they couldn't hit an elephant at this dist," just as he was shot by a Confederate sharpshooter. Convicted murderer James W. Roberts, when asked if he had any last requests before dying by a firing squad, said, "Bring me a bulletproof vest." Groucho Marx, "Die, my dear, why, that's the last thing I'll do." Buddy Rich, my favorite drummer, my favorite musician, when asked just before surgery by a nurse, "Is there anything you can't take?" replied, "Yeah, country music." Dylan Thomas' last words, "I've just had 18 straight whiskeys. I think that's a record." And finally, W.C. Fields, when asked why he was reading the Bible, said, "I'm looking for loopholes."
Thank you, Chuck. So next week, Rotary on the Road. We're going to Fort Meigs. The meeting will start at 12:30. That's when our speaker will start. You can show up a little bit early. And I've been told that afterward we can roam the grounds a little bit, and I don't know if we'll have a guide or not. It's a sign-up meeting, at least if you're going to eat lunch. If you intend to have lunch there, definitely sign up. I'm assuming you can probably show up if you don't want to eat anyway. One committee meeting today right after this, and it's the vocational service Luke, you're going to be in the Shamrock Room, or the Chelsea if you prefer. You have your choice. I want to thank again our guests, Richard, Pastor Rick, and Mike. Thanks for coming. And that's all I got. We're adjourned.